Let me start with a sentence that sounds amazing, but it's probably going to cost some people hundreds of thousands of dollars. You might not need the LSAT anymore. That sentence is everywhere right now. Florida has dropped the ABA requirement, Texas has gone its own way as well, and the ABA itself has opened the door to test optional admissions. And suddenly, Reddit, TikTok, group chats, they're all saying the same thing. Wait, does this mean I can skip the LSAT? No more logical reasoning, no reading comp, no months of studying, I can just apply? And I get why that feels exciting. But here is the uncomfortable truth. When law school headlines like that get loud, people make bad decisions. They panic, they delay, they gamble on shortcuts. And 3 years later, the people who follow the headlines are stuck with massive debt and fewer options, while the people who ignore the noise quietly won. So today, I want to slow this all the way down to explain what has actually changed, what did not change, and what you should do this cycle while everybody else is distracted. Because, spoiler, for most applicants, the optimal strategy barely changes at all. But if you actually understand what's really going on, you can use this moment to your advantage. Now, here is the first mistake that people make. They assume that law school admissions reacts quickly to headlines. But law school admissions is actually quite bureaucratic. It's not tech or Silicon Valley or startups. Law schools are conservative. They are the most conservative system in higher education. They value precedent, hierarchy, legibility, and risk reduction. And so when a rule changes on paper, the market does not immediately follow. And the people who get hurt are the ones who confuse permission with outcomes. That is the frame that you need to adopt. And so I want you to put yourself in one of three buckets and be honest with yourself here. The first bucket is if you want a top law school, you want a top outcome, or you want serious scholarship money. We're talking here top 14 law schools, top 20 law schools, strong regional schools, or minimizing your law school debt. If that is you, your strategy stays the same. It basically hasn't changed at all. If you're in the second bucket, you care more about flexibility. You want to be able to move across state lines, change your practice area over your career. Maybe you want to pursue a federal job or a clerkship. And if that's you, your strategy also really hasn't changed. But if you're in the third bucket, that might mean that you are absolutely certain you will only practice the law in one state. You don't care about the portability of your JD, and you're willing to take on real risk. And only people in this third bucket should even be considering alternative paths right now. And most people like to think they're in bucket three because they don't want to take the LSAT. They want to avoid it. But the truth is that almost nobody is actually in that bucket. So keep that in mind. There are two separate developments making headlines these days that everybody's mashing together into one panicked narrative. The first is the American Bar Association and the test optional movement. The ABA now allows law schools to apply for what's called a variance. A variance is just special permission. It lets a given law school experiment with admitting some students without a standardized test like the LSAT. But you got to keep in mind that variance is not automatically granted, it's not permanent, it's supervised by the ABA, and it's also reversible. So this is basically the ABA saying to a given law school, we're going to let you try out something different. But that's not saying the LSAT's gone for everybody. The second major development that made waves early 2026 is Texas and Florida. Texas moved first. They finalized a system where American Bar Association accreditation is no longer the exclusive gatekeeper for Texas bar eligibility. Shortly after that, the state of Florida followed, removing the American Bar Association as being the sole accrediting body for Florida bar eligibility. Now, notice the language that I'm using here. I'm speaking very carefully. I'm not saying here that the ABA is irrelevant or that all JDs are equal. This is just exclusivity being loosened by 2 states out of 50. Now, just because something is allowed doesn't mean that it's usable. There is no brand new, proven nationwide alternative accreditation system operating at scale right now. The American Bar Association is still the main game in town and almost exclusive. There is no alternative competitor that has a long track record or deep alumni network or decades of bar passage data. So, when you see a headline saying that you don't need an ABA accredited JD anymore, what you should hear is someday, under certain conditions, maybe your children or your grandchildren will be able to take that path, but that's not a plan for you today. If it were you today, that's taking a massive six-figure bet, and you don't want to do that with additional uncertainty. Now, here's what didn't change. Law school admissions is still a risk management system. Every major actor involved is trying to avoid downside, and that should include you as well. Admissions wants students who won't fail the bar. Schools want to protect their bar passage rates. Scholarship committees want predictable ROI on those scholarships they're granting. And the US News rankings still reward objective metrics and standardized signals. And that's why the LSAT hasn't disappeared, even though everybody loves to complain about it. And it's not perfect, of course, I'm not claiming that it is, but it does solve multiple problems at once. And these institutions under uncertainty, they're clinging to those signals of reliability because the LSAT, of course, it's not perfect, but it's a decent predictor of first-year law school grades and bar passage rates, and law schools are evaluated based on those metrics. Now, the LSAT is a major benefit to you as an applicant because it can get you scholarship money. Imagine two applicants who have identical GPAs, the same major, similar resumes, but one has a 158 LSAT score and the other has a 168 LSAT score. That 10-point difference is major. At many schools, it could make the difference between paying sticker tuition and getting major scholarship money. I'm talking tens of thousands of dollars per year. And when you multiply that across 3 years, it could easily cross six figures. If you get a full ride, it could save you hundreds of thousands of dollars easily. And so when I hear someone say to me, I might just go test optional, what I'm hearing is, I'm okay paying more for the same degree because I don't want to take the LSAT. And even schools that have that variance that can admit students without the LSAT, they often still use the LSAT anyway to decide who they accept. Very few people get in without LSAT scores, and when they do, they're paying more in tuition as a result. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, I'll wait and see how all of this shakes out. But the problem is, there's a big opportunity cost to delaying your law school plans. Every year that you wait is another year in your current situation in the status quo, presumably making less money now than you will on the other end after you have earned your JD. And the LSAT is still the single biggest lever that you get to control. Your GPA is probably already pretty fixed at this point. Your resume also, same deal. But the LSAT is 1 day, 2.5 hours. You could study for it in the next few months and radically change your law school outcomes. Now, the problem with the Florida and Texas changes is portability of your JD, meaning that if you have your JD that you've earned, the thing is that if you earn it from an ABA accredited law school, the benefit is that you could take the bar in pretty much any state. If you go to a non-ABA accredited law school in Florida or Texas through alternative accreditation, your JD might not be portable. You might be stuck in a given state. So in other words, if you go outside the ABA to a law school in Texas, your JD may not transport across state lines from out of Texas. Same deal with Florida. And most people don't practice law where they think they will at the age of 22. Your spouse might want to move, your parents might get sick, and your interests might change. And so if some new opportunity opens up elsewhere, having an ABA accredited degree is going to make it easier for you to move. If you choose a more narrow pathway tied to one state, you're betting that you're never going to need optionality, and that's a brutal bet to make, a brutal bet to lose. You don't want to make that bet right now. Now, there's no benefit to being an early adopter, to being a guinea pig, or to being the first one in. If you're early, you're paying that uncertainty tax. You have more explaining to do. You don't have the same alumni network, and having to explain your credentials is not a benefit. You want everyone to understand and respect your JD. And of course, this could change long term. You could see alternative accreditation systems mature and change over time. Admissions models might evolve, but you're not applying to a law school 10, 20, 30 years from now. You're probably applying now in 2026. And so part of your strategy should involve timing. And so you want to double down on what you know works and let other people be the ones to experiment. So if you want to get into better law schools, if you want more scholarship money, if you want longer term flexibility, your move is still the same. You want to maximize your LSAT score and use it to keep costs low. And you want to target schools that you know have proven outcomes. And so, yes, the ABA is changing, and Florida and Texas have made major moves against the ABA, but none of that changes what you should do right now as a law school applicant. Get the highest possible LSAT score to get into the best law school possible, minimize your debt, ideally go for a full ride and don't pay for law school,